Welcome to the Pre-Post Film Review. I'm Matt Stevenson.
And I'm Jon Asquith. This episode we're going to be talking about the new Christopher Nolan film, Interstellar. So the way the podcast works is what you'll be hearing is our impressions of the trailer, which we watch obviously before the movie comes out. And so we talk about, what we're expecting for the movie, what could happen, all that kind of stuff, our hopes, expectations. And then we come back into the studio after the film's released and we talk about the film itself and compare it to what our hopes were and all that kind of stuff. So the first section that you'll hear, which is the trailer, is spoiler-free, obviously, because we haven't seen the movie yet. But the film review and film discussion is full of spoilers. We just jump straight into those, so don't listen unless you've seen the movie.
You're a well-educated man, Coop, and a trained pilot.
And an engineer.
The world doesn't need any more engineers. We didn't run out of planes and television sets. We ran out of food.
Dad, why did you name me after something that's bad?
No, we didn't.
Murphy's Law.
Murphy's Law doesn't mean that something bad will happen. It means that whatever can happen will happen.
So, John, we've just watched the first full-length trailer for the new Christopher Nolan film, Interstellar.
We have.
What do you think? What are your thoughts?
I'm on like a movie high after watching this trailer. I think it looks amazing.
Yep.
And I'm just like not even going to hold back my expectations for this. I'm going to be, as
You're going to get fanboy.
I am. I'm just letting it all out there. I think, Christopher Nolan obviously has such a strong back catalogue of films. Even his sort of, disappointing-ish movies still have a lot to offer.
I don't think he's ever been disappointing, John.
Well, we've had this discussion about Dark Knight Rises, but I like that, but that's another podcast maybe. But I think this just looks like, actually bringing up Batman, this looks like a great clean slate after those films. It feels like a Christopher Nolan film, judging from the trailer, but it also kind of seems to have a new visual tone to it that maybe we haven't seen as much of.
I totally agree with that.
I just think everything in the trailer points to it being really, really impressive. The casting of Matthew McConaughey,
he's just on a massive role at the moment.
He's just phenomenal. The whole idea, just in general, of this film about people travelling out to space and kind of the surreal, weird stuff happening out there. It just interests me so much personally. I love that kind of stuff, and so I think I'm really excited. Anyway, I'm going to keep gushing, so I'm going to pass it over to you now. Otherwise I won't shut up.
I'm pretty much just as excited as you, I think, John. I don't know. I agree with every single thing you've just said. I think you're absolutely right in terms of visuals. That's one of the things that I was probably most pleasantly surprised about seeing this trailer, was that it felt different to the Batman films. I think the 3 Batman films and the 2 he did in between, which was The Prestige and Inception, all had a very similar kind of, feel and bleakness to them. It had kind of like a blue wash over the worlds of all, how many films? 5 films. They're obviously all very different, and I loved all of them, but there's a certain visual continuity between all of them that I think this is very different from. Has sort of more earthy reds and oranges, yellows.
That's right. Yeah,
and I think it's that it seems to be set out in the country as well, which is sort of a new environment for Nolan. He's very urban with all the films that he's made previously, which I think that's exciting to me. It's like you said, it still feels Christopher Nolan. Doesn't feel like he's stepping outside of his comfort zone, I guess, but it just feels new and fresh for him, which is great. I'm excited that it's based on actual science as well. One of my pet peeves is sci-fi films that take themselves seriously and then sort of forget the basic laws of physics halfway through, and you just have to start suspending your disbelief. So I sort of got my fingers crossed that this has got its head in the right place. It's all grounded in reality, and
yeah, certainly seems to be.
yeah. I mean, obviously, I'd want some weirdness as well, but I want it to be sort of scientifically based weirdness,
Yeah,
if that
that's
makes
right,
sense. Which I guess you get only a tiny glimpse of it towards the end of the trailer, but hopefully that's what it provides.
Yeah, and that's another great thing about the trailer too, is that it gives you a glimpse of the weird stuff. It gives you a glimpse of the storyline. I mean, you can put enough together to figure out what the story is.
Or at least, the basic premise of the film.
Yeah. But, you know, this is a full trailer, and it doesn't spoil that much.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very good point.
You know, we have often talk about already, like, how trailers are giving away too much stuff, and it's so refreshing to see something that gives you just enough to sort of entice you and to give you a general idea of what's basically happening, but still leave so much unexplained and unshown.
Yeah, and I think that's the right way to do a trailer, is to hint at enough so you know the kind of film that you're going in for, the very bare basics of the story, and then the rest of the trailer should be about building the tone and the mood of the film to make it, you know, your expectations match what you're going to see in the cinema.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be about explaining every single plot beat and character development moment. It should be just all about mood and atmosphere and a little bit of plot, which this does perfectly. I think. Yeah,
perfect mix. I'm really, really excited for this.
I think this looks like it's going to deal with warmer emotions than he has in the past. I feel like.
I agree.
Looking at that trailer, I expect this film to be 50% set in a little country town in rural America about a family dealing with the fact that their father looks like a single-parent family, just based on what we saw on the trailer. Dealing with the fact that the father is leaving on this mission. And then the second half of the film, perhaps even less than that, is going to be weird sci-fi shit.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, actually. And I think even just watching the trailer, I feel the connection between, you know, the Matthew McConaughey character and his kids. So I'm expecting, that to hit more in the film, which is another good, refreshing thing for Christopher Nolan, because he can sometimes be a little cold and distant from some of the more emotional sides of his characters.
One other thing that I'm excited about is the prospect of getting an intelligent sci-fi film, and not anything that's just full of action and spaceships shooting each other, or, you know, big intergalactic wars that are happening. It's just a smart man sci-fi, more of a thriller than an action film, I guess, or even a drama. You know, it doesn't look like there's much thriller in there.
It seems more
a human drama based half in space.
No, I think you're right. I think it seems like a great mixture between the drama and then these sci-fi or scientific ideas being explored visually. And I totally agree about Christopher Nolan in general is really good at melding these like big Hollywood, huge budget films that are entertaining but also have a lot of depth and thematic content to them.
So we're both obviously super excited for this one, John?
No, totally. I think it's exciting anytime there's a new Christopher Nolan film on the horizon. You know, he's one of those filmmakers that reminds me why I love cinema and why I love film, and he's just has the right mind space that connects with me personally. So,
I feel exactly the same way. High hopes.
You could say interstellar hopes.
Get out.
Confront the reality that nothing in our solar system can help us.
Now you need to tell me what your plan is to save the world.
We're not meant to save the world. We're meant to leave it. And this is the mission we were trained for.
I've got kids, Professor.
Get out there and save them.
I have no idea when you're coming back.
I'm coming back.
We must reach far beyond our own lifespans. must think not as individuals, but as a species. We must confront the reality of interstellar travel.
Here we are back in our lovely little studio, and the time has come to talk about
It has.
the new Christopher Nolan film, which is always sort of a big release
Yeah, it is a big
amongst
deal.
film buffs,
Yep.
because he manages most of the time to cross this sort of art and commercial worlds quite well, and so it always feels like a big deal. And his latest film is Interstellar, obviously, Matt. And I'm just going to ask you straight up.
Straight up.
What are your sort of overall impressions?
I still kind of don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a very conflicted relationship with this film.
Yeah.
There's some stuff I love, like love. It's kind of my perfect sci-fi film in a lot of ways. A lot of the stuff, the family drama and even the slightly sentimental stuff really worked for me. But there's some big problems that almost completely derailed the film for me.
Okay.
That just didn't work for me at all. There was some hokey stuff at the beginning that didn't quite work for me. Even towards the end, I've seen the film twice now, which part of my reason for seeing it for a second time is because that I was struggling with it and I couldn't come down on exactly what I thought of it and how much worked and how much didn't. And it was actually a really good experience watching it again, because it sort of made me...
Did it clarify a lot?
Yeah, it
for you?
did actually. Because there was a bit more of an emotional distance from it, and just looking at the structure and how things were sort of put together really highlighted the things that worked well, and the things that worked well really do work well and hold up, but it also highlighted the stuff that didn't work well for me, and it gave me a bit more to sort of latch onto and understand as to why it didn't work all that well for me. But I mean, overall, I think it's a really good film, and I enjoyed most of it, but I think it's a flawed, really good film.
Okay.
What about you, John? How did you feel about it?
I guess I feel similar to you, but perhaps more positive. I came out of the film just feeling bewildered and
In
a
a
bit
good
lost. I think in a good way. Yeah. Well, yeah, in a good way. Yeah.
Okay.
I admire the ambition
Yeah,
and
for sure.
the scope and the artistry of this film, and the fact that Christopher Nolan has made this like $150 million science movie, basically. I mean, it stretches certain things, but overall, compared to, a Marvel film or whatever, or the other Hollywood fare that's coming out, like this is head and shoulders above those in terms of intellectual stuff.
Yeah, I mean, even in terms of something like Gravity, I think like this feels like it's got a more
Absolutely.
scientific weight to it. I mean,
does,
that felt
yeah.
like it had a certain realism, but even that towards the end sort of threw that out the window, and it got very Hollywoody.
Yeah.
Whereas this seems like this is kind of the definition of hard science in a lot of ways.
That's right. Yeah, and I hugely respect that. The balls, I guess, it takes to throw this out there to a mainstream audience and expect them to
It's great, isn't it?
all come and watch. And he's gone on record many times in saying that he does not at all believe in treating the audience like idiots, and he thinks that they're a lot smarter than other Hollywood execs might give them credit for. But I think also there are problems with the science of the movie, and I don't mean from a scientific point of view, but I mean there is a lot of characters sitting around talking about science, man, and like explaining things to the finite detail, and after a little while it gets a little tiresome, some of that stuff in the middle of the film.
That's
I mean, I don't want to delve in too much yet because we'll sort of get to that. But that was one of my problems whilst watching, was like,
interesting, 'cause, like,
this feels like exposition and explanation too much to me.
The first time I saw the film, I kind of didn't feel that.
Okay.
There were certain scenes that the logic kind of jumped out to me. And this is jumping around a bit as well, I suppose, but there was a scene where one of the astronauts explains to Cooper how the black hole or the wormhole works by drawing on a bit of paper and folding it.
Yeah.
One that's straightly ripped out of Event Horizon. If you've ever seen Event Horizon,
No.
that's the exact way that they
I haven't, but I have seen a lot of astrophysicists use that example.
It's like a common way of
Yeah.
showing how it works. But to me, that was went off in my mind as why would Matthew McConaughey not know
Yes,
that?
actually, I thought the same
as
thing
an
in that
astronaut
scene.
that's
Yeah.
trained with NASA his entire life. Like, yes, it was
Yeah.
exposition that our audience probably had to know, but that in particular really stood out as like exposition for the audience that
Yeah.
didn't make narrative or character sense.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and like you, I'm still deciding. You know,
Yeah.
it's only been 2 or 3 days since
Yeah.
I saw it
It's
as
quite
well.
fresh for me
And
as
so,
well,
yeah, it's definitely the sort of film that takes a while to settle on you because it is so big and so ambitious, and it's packed, absolutely packed with so much content, for lack of a better word, that you can chew on, like thematic stuff, character stuff, sciencey stuff, like filmmaking stuff. It's all in there, and I give it top props for that, and
Yeah.
I really like it. Like I really, really like it.
Yeah.
I just don't know whether I can say I love it yet.
I'm in the same boat as you.
Even though I sort of maybe want to because of the chances that it takes. But like you said, there are problems, and a lot of that is some of the writing in terms of how characters just interact and the emotional relationships they have. You know, having said that, I think this is one of his most human or humane movies, I guess. You know, there's a lot of focus on character relationships and love as a theme, you know, which you do not associate with him, and I think we talked about in the trailer expectations as well.
I actually think that works for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. And I would not have thought that with him.
No,
you know?
it's surprising. And before going into the film, having read some of the early buzz, I was a little concerned that that's where the problems were going to be, because there was kind of this consensus that it might be a little bit too sentimental. So when it first kicked in, I was actually really impressed, and I was totally swept up at the beginning. I was overwhelmed. I saw this in IMAX, so that may have had something to do with it, but also just the fact that it was shot on film, and you can see
tell,
that.
absolutely.
And instantly when having that cinematic film look overwhelmed me, and there's the part at the start where the truck they drive the truck off into the cornfield to chase that drone, and the music, the score kicks in, and I got emotional. Like, I was so swept up in this film, and it kind of felt Spielbergian, and it was this magical, wondrous moment, and I just had this like outpouring of love for cinema in general. And
understand exactly what you mean.
I was like, at that moment, I was like, I'm in fucking love with this film. I don't know why anyone could criticize this. This is going to be like my film of the year.
Yeah.
But then the ghost dad shit starts to happen, and that to start was warning bells for me. And I kind of tried to push it aside and think, you know, they're not going to make much of this. But I mean, I guess at least for me, I picked that straight away, that was going to end up being a time paradox.
Okay,
and it was going to be, well, to me it's a hard science-based film, and you bring up ghosts straight away. It's like, it's not ghosts. It has to have a scientific explanation, right?
Yeah. I didn't think it was a ghost either, but I thought the film might be open to like alien life or something. But at the same time, when he gets to NASA and it's like, they led you here specifically, and it starts to get a bit mystical. That was like, right. This doesn't quite fit what's going on here. But you know, the movie corrects itself by the end, really, because of that. You know, it's not a ghost, and there is a reasonably theoretical, scientific kind of explanation.
I still do have problems with that, even the quote unquote theory. Anyway, we can discuss that when we get to the ending in more detail. But like that sort of weird supernaturally angle at the beginning didn't sit right with me, kind of like exactly what you said. And even just in a narrative or character sense within the film, I don't think it felt right. Like, if that was happening, if this NASA scientist, Cooper, saw these weird phenomenons in his house that then gave him coordinates to somewhere, he'd be a little bit more freaked out.
Yeah, I agree. The reaction is very strange to it.
And like, if you rocked up at NASA and were like, I just got some coordinates off some magical gravity waves in my daughter's bedroom, don't you think they'd be like, shit the bed, get the whole fucking research team down there.
Yeah,
what the hell's going on? Someone's found out our super secret base. Like,
yeah.
And then there was this weird dialogue about where Michael Caine's like, yeah, you were chosen.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and then there's one of the worst lines in the film where he's like, "You're the best pilot we ever had," and I was just like, ugh.
Yeah. That's that whole little section there is where it really stood out, like some of the clunkiness of the story. I totally agree. I think Matthew McConaughey is sitting around the table, and they're all like, "Don't you get it? Don't you know who we are? We're NASA." Like, firstly, no. How would he know that? Don't treat him like an idiot for that. And then Michael Caine stands up and presses a button, and the wall just like moves away, and there's a spaceship there, and they just walk off, and it's like that is such a movie, silly moment which would never happen in real life. It just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I think after that it sort of settles again, and it's being a bit nitpicky, and while, especially for the first time, this stood out a lot more for me in the second viewing. But in the first time, I was still quite swept up in it, and I was allowing a lot of this to where's
slide.
The mystery going?
And you're so caught up in this wonder, and even if it is a bit hokey, you're so interested in where it's going that you let it go. Yeah, it's on subsequent viewings, I think, is where that's really going to stand out. One thing I really loved actually was the fact that they skip any sort of training montage or anything. Like, it just cuts directly from him leaving the daughter, Merv. Yeah. And there's sort of this audio of the spaceship countdown as he drives the truck off through the cornfields or whatever. And then it just cuts directly to the launch of the spaceship. I found that scene really emotionally affecting. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, same. I think that that was a great scene with the score swelling. And as a side note, the score is really, really good in this movie.
I love the score of this film. Yeah,
it's fantastic. It's like Hans Zimmer is always on his A grade when he works with Christopher Nolan. Like, they really bring out the best in each other.
I've never understood the criticisms people have of the score being too overwhelming in Nolan films.
No, I mean, it's always very present, but it works, I think. And that seems more like a choice than a crutch or something that he's leaning on.
Actually, how did you feel about the robots in the film?
I thought they were fucking cool, actually. Yeah, right? Yeah. When I remember I had read in some sort of thing that there was a robot, but I'd forgotten. And then when it came back, I was like, holy shit, there's robots in this movie. That's right. And the design of it was so cool. Like, I've never seen anything like that. The fact that it could, I mean, it looks like this slab, but then it can sort of come apart and walk around and all that sort of stuff. I thought it was great. And the personality in it was fantastic
that's what
as well.
really stuck out for me as well, is they were funny. And that's the other thing. People often criticise Nolan for not having a sense of humour, but there was a lot of laughs in this film.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, in terms of the robots, to begin with, when it was first introduced at that table and it kind of leans at him, that I was instantly put off, and I was like, oh, that's I almost wanted to laugh. It just seemed so silly and this big metal
thing.
Slab thing. And even to an extent throughout the film, when they kind of do their slow, clunky walk, it seems so impractical and such a waste of power to have them kind of wobble around like that, because it didn't seem like they ever had any stability. But then there's that moment on the water planet where where Anne Hathaway's character gets stranded and it has to quickly get to her, and it kind of splits apart and does this kind of cartwheeling move and races towards her.
I loved that moment so much.
As soon as that is revealed that it has all these other functions and faster, more efficient ways to move, it
was just being lazy before.
Yeah, totally. It was kind of preserving its power, battery power, and
exactly.
Clomping around in an awkward fashion.
Yeah. I love that moment, since we're talking about it now. That whole sequence on the water planet, I was just in cinematic ecstasy, because it just worked as this concise, self-enclosed kind of sequence as soon as they land on the planet, and things aren't as they seem, and the tension building, and they're mountains, no, it's a tidal wave, and just that concept is just, for me personally, something that is chilling and exciting. And when the TARS, the robot, started cartwheeling to save her, I was just like, I haven't really seen anything like this for such a long time. Like this, the originality of seeing this weird, rectangular object like cartwheeling through this ocean that has this giant tidal wave in the background, and it was just like I appreciate that so much.
That's so true, and it's filmed in such realism as
Absolutely.
well. Like there's those aerial helicopter shots, which I
Yeah.
swear are like a real ocean.
Yeah,
I
they
don't
must
know how
be.
they accomplished that.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
just comped them in
Yeah.
digitally or something, but it has this sense of realism,
Absolutely.
and tactileness to it, which again just helps with the sense of danger and everything. But I totally agree. I think that planet, and I would encapsulate from before they go down to
Yeah.
when they get back,
Yeah.
with the explanations in terms of gravity and the time shift,
Oh, yeah.
is the best thing in that film.
Yeah,
Like it
absolutely.
perfectly sets up the rules for that planet. You understand them. You know what's at stake and what they're trying to do, and the tension while they're on it is relentless. It's incredible. And then that moment when they get back and the doors open, like after they've just lost a colleague, it's all turned to shit.
Yeah.
And that you realise they've been away for 23 years. And just
Yeah.
that line, it's like,
I know, yeah.
chills you to the
yeah,
core.
absolutely.
And the look on his face, because he must have, the other crew member who I can't remember his name,
No, me neither.
had been like obviously waiting for them for 23 years. And you can just imagine how close to insanity he must have been.
Yeah, exactly.
And then after that, you get the video messages for 23 years.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it in Grave of the Fireflies, about crying in a film. I had tears streaming down my face, like literally just pouring.
Yeah, that was such a well-constructed scene. Like, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I teared up a bit, but yeah, I wasn't welling like you obviously
was a
were. But
mess
it was just fantastic filmmaking and storytelling at that point.
Yeah. I think
that little, as you say, that kind of section of the film is just Christopher Nolan on his A game.
Yeah, that's the high point of the film for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you feel, scenes where it's sort of into the space section now, how did you feel about the other planet they went to, the ice planet?
I thought
with
that
Matt Damon, who was a surprise.
Yeah, he pops out of his little
water
water bag, water bed. That was a welcome, little surprise.
Yeah.
I think, it took me out for a second because it's like
because it was Matt Damon.
Yeah. But he's such a good actor that he fell back into the role. And actually, he immediately begins sobbing and crying. And then
that was a great way to introduce it, or a great reaction to that moment.
Yeah,
I think.
absolutely.
It's so understandable.
Yeah. And then, then the next scene, he's like, I hope you never have to, experience that emotion just at seeing another human face. It was fantastic. The planet as a whole, I thought was really cool. The design of sort of the clouds being frozen and almost creating this like mirrored landscape where there is no sky. There's just a horizon in the distance and mountains above and below.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
We spend a bit of time there, but I think it's necessary for the mini sort of film we get there of this mini arc of Matt Damon, who's like lying to them and saying that this planet is,
Yeah, because he's built up as the best of mankind, or the greatest of all kind of explorers, because he was the one that pioneered this mission and convinced all these people to go on this potential suicide run to these planets. So before you meet him, or I suppose until it's revealed that he's gone a bit loopy, he is sort of considered this amazing guy.
That's right.
So I guess you're right. Like, you need a bit of time on this planet for him to have this little arc.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks, Matt. And I started to get hopeful for them, like for the mission, that
they'd found a planet.
They'd found a planet, and even though it looked,
bit shit
and freezing cold, he's like down near the surface a bit different, like down near the water level or the surface or whatever he meant by that. And then I also thought his turn was really unexpected. I didn't see it coming, and also totally understandable. Like, it was a great another sci-fi notch in Christopher Nolan's belt for this movie. He touches upon so many like different philosophical questions and things in sci-fi. However, and this goes back to the problem that we're talking about with character dialogue and interactions being weird. This little speech that he gives to Matthew McConaughey after he's like smashed his helmet
And left him to die, yeah.
it is just so like talking about the themes behind
Just
him.
spewing out,
And he's not acting like a real person. And he's like, I can't watch this. I thought I could watch you die, but I can't, because I'm a coward, basically. And his character became unrealistic.
I guess you can kind of
while
argue,
there.
I suppose, that it was because he was crazy. Like,
Yeah.
he didn't act quite normal because
Yeah,
he
that's
lost
true.
his mind.
And he
to an
was
extent.
he probably had been talking out loud for many years
Yeah.
to himself or to the robot. So
But no,
I
agree.
can buy that.
It doesn't feel 100% right though.
Yeah. He was talking very much to the themes of that moment rather than just a human.
Yeah, it did also stand out to me as very Sunshine-esque.
Yeah.
That's immediately what came to mind when I saw it was the Danny Boyle film Sunshine, which I love. But having said that, and the fact that it didn't quite feel all that original, and it didn't sort of feel natural in terms of dialogue, I did, like you said, like the thematic stuff that was going on. Like, I like that you have the duality of those two planets, and there's the one that's them versus sort of nature, and they almost get defeated by nature. Then you get the second planet where it's them versus humanity, and they're almost defeated by themselves or mankind. I think it's almost worth having that like clunky dialogue and
I agree.
a little bit of cliche just so you can explore. Or I mean, obviously there probably would have been better ways you could do it if you're nitpicky, but I'm happy with it because there's rich stuff underneath that you can
totally
read into it all. Okay, so the sort of going chronologically, the next big thing I suppose is the old trip down the black hole.
Well, that's right. I think
well, I suppose it's the escape from the ice planet.
Escape from the ice planet, which was a very cool scene, I thought.
I actually loved that scene, and watching it again on the second time, that's one of the things that really, really held up. Just the tension that they're able to create, and again, just kind of like the film is really good in these kind of tense moments in explaining its logic, and you understand exactly what's at stake and what's happening and what they have to do without it feeling too exposition-y like some of the earlier parts in the film. Like you understand he has to rotate his craft to match the speed, and it's all kind of done visually in clever little ways, and it's a great
that's a really
sequence.
well put together sequence, that one.
Actually, leading up to that though, speaking of criticisms, is that I felt that Dr. Mann, when he goes like after he tries to kill Coop, and he flies back and tries to dock with the space station and kind of doesn't dock correctly but still tries to get in. That was another one of those character moments that I just didn't believe. Like if he was meant to be this genius astronaut,
it was a very dumb thing for him to do.
Like surely he knows if you haven't sealed an airlock, don't open the fucking doors because you're going to die.
Yeah, that's right.
Why would they need to tell him that, and why would he even attempt to do that?
That's right,
That sort of pulled me out a little bit.
Yeah, I did think that as well. The couple of bigger criticisms I have of moments around this section of the film where the ice planet is. Before they make the decision to go to the ice planet, instead of seeing
that's right.
Anne
Sorry, we
Hathaway's...
skipped the big important scene.
Yeah, this is a big character scene where they're deciding, well, we've only got enough fuel to go to one more planet.
Yeah.
We can't go to both. And Anne Hathaway's boyfriend,
which actually, that's one of the problems I have with the film. Sorry to jump in here.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Like,
that's
not
exactly what I was leading
all.
to. Yeah, I was just like, huh?
yeah, right.
And all of a sudden, Matthew McConaughey's like, she can't make a right decision. She's in love with this guy. And she's like, yes, I am. And she goes on this big speech about love and, it transcends time and all this stuff. And it just felt like this hasn't been set up. Is there one line, I think, earlier?
He asks
where he asks
Tars,
Tars,
the computer,
that's what I
whether
thought
they
it was
had a
then.
relationship, but Tars never confirms nor denies. It's kind of this like...
and that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not even anything. Yeah, it's so insignificant. He just asks if they had any like previous connection or a previous existing relationship. That's it.
Exactly, yeah. And at that point in the film, too, it feels like it's because he's kind of interested in her and he's like...
Yeah, because she had never done anything that would suggest that her like scientific planning skills had been compromised or anything.
That's right.
That she wasn't basing things on science. Instead, she was basing them on feelings. She had done nothing that was sketchy.
Exactly.
It was just kind of like, is she taken?
Yeah.
And then that was it.
Yeah,
and then all of a
that's
sudden we get him like blasting her, saying that she can't make a correct decision.
Yeah.
Because she's clouded by love, and you're like, what's going on?
Yeah, that was really out of nowhere and took me out, and I felt like just quite an obvious flaw that they could have fixed with a little bit more setup early on or something. Well, yeah, that was one, and then soon after, I suppose, when they're on the ice planet, you get this twist that Michael Caine sent them out there.
Not a suicide.
With no
plan
intention
A
of
was,
them actually coming back.
Yeah.
Which I felt was really unnecessary considering how much plot and how much stuff we're explaining in the movie already, and ultimately doesn't change too much except for a 10-minute sequence where they're all getting emotional because
that's a really good point.
They can't see their loved ones again, and maybe that's the final straw for Cooper, Matthew McConaughey's character, to actually try and go back home. I don't know, but it felt like an unnecessary twist.
That's true. I guess it could have even just been the fact that they weren't able to solve the equation. Like, it didn't need to be this big conspiracy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you still get to that ending, which is the same, where they do solve it eventually. Yeah. Like, and nothing really changes anyway if you take that out.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I just felt like that was a bit
just an extra
dramatic for the sake of it.
And
on a film that's already struggling in some ways to hold everything together.
Yeah. Just to jump back to the Anne Hathaway scene, that is probably my least favourite moment in the entire film, when she starts harping on about love. Like, as soon as she started that monologue, I was trying not to vomit on myself. Like, the like, what does she say? Literally, she's like, what love is quantifiable, something about love being quantifiable, and love is the only thing that can transcend space and time. And I was just like, get the fuck out of this movie. Like, what is this doing in a hard science Christopher Nolan movie?
I think the movie could earn that monologue if other things had been set up.
But but even then, that's not a movie I want to see. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I don't know if I agree with that. I think there are moments in this movie, like you said yourself, you were crying your eyes out in the scene where Matthew McConaughey is watching his children grow up through the videos and stuff. That kind of stuff could lead to this sort of
I think so.
monologue.
I see what you're saying, but I think that hints at it in a way that doesn't try and make it scientific. Do you know what I mean? Like, the fact that you're saying love is the thing that can transcend space-time. It's like you're putting it in an equation on a whiteboard.
Like love equals,
seriously, that's what it feels like, especially
saying.
in a sciencey film. I know what you're saying in terms of the thematic through line, which I think I agree is fine, and they could have accomplished in a much, I don't know, more subtle way than having someone lecture me about love being the most powerful scientific thing that humans have. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I understand that. Like, he was so worried about the hard science that he tried to shoehorn love as a feeling into science.
Yeah, which I don't like. They should never be together in that sense. Like, I'm not saying you can't deal with that sort of thematic stuff in a science fiction film. In fact, that they kind of go together in a weird way. Like,
they do, and
even 2001 or Tree of Life or films like that do it well. They mesh the two, but they don't mesh them like that. Do you know what I mean? They don't try and put them on the same. The
climax of the film in the 4 or 5 dimension time thing, it is a visual representation anyway of what she's saying. So you kind of get that anyway, where his love for his family and his humanity is, he's able to physically, beat on this.
Which is the other
time construction
that
thing.
I hated.
I wouldn't say I hated it. I don't know if you hated it. Did you really hate it?
Well, I mean, I guess hate is a strong word, but it did. It really did pull me out of the film, and I was rolling my eyes and just.
I really like that scene.
Maybe I guess it's like a personal taste thing, but it totally took me out. I was thinking about this the other night after I saw it for a second time as to why I have such a strong reaction. I think it is exactly that, in terms of putting love into a scientific framework, which I just 100% don't buy.
It's not specifically love in that moment. But
it is.
That is moving things. Like,
but
if you're being scientific about it, it's just future versions of us allowing him to interfere with like time space a bit, right?
I mean, I think that's the outlying concept around that, but the actual dialogue in that scene, Matthew McConaughey talks about how they can't find a specific moment in time, and he literally says, "Love is quantifiable. This is why I'm able to communicate with." Like, that's literally spoken in the film.
Yeah.
The reason that they are able to communicate with one another is love. Which, I mean, on a second viewing, I didn't hate it as much as I did in the first viewing. But I still think even if you ignore that love stuff,
yeah,
I think I just have a natural sort of aversion to such grand science theory things funneling down into such a specific, like, plot contrivance. Do you know what I mean? Like, the film is all about all these grand philosophical things and ideas, and you know, he goes into this black hole and no one knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I just think like a film that's dealing with this kind of stuff deserves a more, I don't know, symbolic or, you know, open to interpretation kind of ending, or not ending, but explanation for what happens in a black hole, instead of like funneling it down into like a M. Night Shyamalan style twist. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just felt...
I do understand, and it does feel M. Night-ish.
Yeah, but...
I was reminded of Signs, actually.
Yeah, so was I.
When watching this, but... And this might be, again, like a thing between us personally, but I really like Signs. I think Signs is like one of my favourite movies. And and some people just can't get over like some of the plot holes and some of the silliness of the last act in that movie. But it just works for me. Like, and I think this is a similar thing where the thematic stuff is enough to overcome some of the plot and logic things there that don't quite add up altogether.
I agree to an extent, I suppose. Like, I like Signs as well, but I think that earns that because it's about a family and it's about that.
True.
You know what
True.
I mean? This isn't about...
Yeah.
I mean, it's a part of it, of course, but
yeah.
I don't know. It just never sat with me. It felt like that was a really unsatisfying conclusion to that whole mystical thing that we seem to be building towards, and then it was...
Well, I think, it's the most kind of scientific way they could have answered that question. And it seems like
in terms of the ghost question.
Yeah, maybe you would just prefer if it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take it all out.
Fair enough. But I think, it is there, and so this is like the best way to handle it, you know?
But, yeah, I mean, I guess so. And I do like that...
And it wasn't really... Like, it's time travel, but it's not just that. It's kind of this dimensional thing where time is, like, everywhere at once. And
I like the idea. I actually quite like some of the weird visual shit.
The visual stuff
on,
was
like
great.
The stretchy light patterns.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of him passing it back, like, to a future version of himself.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, I'm assuming this is correct quantum physics, that gravity is the one thing that can, transcend time and space, which is why he's able to communicate. Yeah. But, like, having said that, the other thing that annoyed me was that was kind of the rules that were set up, that it was gravity. But even this scene, it got a bit, like, loosey-goosey.
It did get a bit loose,
He's, like, banging on books that are falling out. I mean, I guess you could kind of argue that's gravity, but it pretty visually tells you that he's punching them out. Like, he's interacting. And then, he does the gravity thing, which is fine with the sand. Yeah. But then in order to communicate the actual thing, he physically changes the watch. Yeah. And, I guess that, again, like, I kind of can appreciate the metaphor of that he's using time. Yeah. In quote, I'm doing air quotes because it's a watch. You know what I mean? It's kind of cutesy. But in terms of the rules, like, watches don't move because gravity. Do you know what I mean? Like,
the rules did come apart a little bit there. I agree. And because almost each signal was like of a different kind as well. One's binary, one's Morse code. Yeah, one is this gravity of the books falling. One is almost like, he's manipulating time back and forth on the watch. Like, there wasn't a great deal of consistency to the messages the way they were being sent through.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think a combination of that and, like I said, funneling these grand themes down into a plot twist. I guess maybe it hurt as well that I'd picked it from the beginning that it was going to be him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So there was no
Yeah.
surprise in it for me, and it
Yeah.
was just it boiled down to this sort of soppy thesis that love is the most important thing. So let's punch out some books and move a watch. Do you know what I mean? Like that was a real.
No, I feel like they've been a bit cynical.
But do you know what I mean? Like how that could be disappointing in terms of the
course,
grand stuff
I totally
that
understand.
came before it.
Yeah, I totally understand where
Yeah.
you're coming from.
That's
But
all I'm trying to say.
It worked for me. I don't know. I feel like I'm the dumb one for liking it, but yeah, it really did. And I think because of the themes and also like Matthew McConaughey's performance there is just like heartbreaking. There's this weird moment where he first realizes where he is, and the camera kind of pulls back, and you see him like leaning against this wall, and it's not even sobbing. It's just like this guttural, primal kind of like moan that he lets out, because it's like, what is going on? Where am I? And how can I see this past version of myself? I think, all that stuff just pulled me in and was just enough to keep me there without getting
fair enough,
annoyed at some of the inconsistencies.
Anyway, we're getting a bit sidetracked here. We should talk about the third act. Well, it's not even the third act. It's the last 5-10 minutes of the film.
Yeah.
Where he's found near Saturn inexplicably,
Yeah.
and rescued. All this little end just seemed very rushed. Like it went by so quickly. Suddenly he was rescued. I did find it a little weird that they take him to his house, which they've rebuilt, which is like a museum, and then he just lives there. Like it would be like empty.
Yeah, that
and,
felt kind of weird.
Yeah, it's just like they moved the railing, like the little guard where visitors can't look, and he just goes in there and then starts having a beer and sit on the
exactly.
porch.
Yeah, that felt a bit strange, and like, why would he just? His reaction in all of this was like, I know he's a scientist and he can keep his cool, but why the fuck isn't he freaking out? And wouldn't he go into that house and just like kind of shit his pants and start crying? Like,
yeah, that's very true.
And have some kind of brain melt because it's like, oh, I'm on a ship, but this is my house.
But actually, that brings me to the final scenes of the film when he finally gets to see Merv, his daughter.
Oh man, it's such a
when he walks in, it's such a he spent the past 3 hours trying to get back to her, and their relationship's kind of what has held this film together.
Yeah,
including all the stuff that I didn't quite like, but that's been the kind of the backbone, or he wanted it to be the backbone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's this really big emotional moment where he finally sees her and she's kind of like dying on the bed. But then I'm laughing because it's just so weirdly handled.
Yeah,
and she
really weirdly handled.
Sits down and she's basically like,
piss off.
Yeah, no parent has to see their kids die. Get out.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, and just leaves. And
I know.
What the fuck? Not only that, but he's got like all his extended family around him, that he hasn't even known existed, like all these grandkids and great-grandkids, maybe even great-great-grandkids, like there's loads of generations.
Exactly.
They don't even fucking look at him,
yeah,
even though
no
he's
one
like
says anything.
This like fucking space hero that's been gone for over 100 years that
That's
everyone,
right. There's a whole museum dedicated to.
No one even says, like, blinks an eyelid that he's just walked in.
Yeah, I found it was just such a missed opportunity because
I know.
when he first walks in and you see her as an old woman,
it's
I
so
felt
emotional.
it welling up in me.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm going to cry. This is going to be really sad. And then the exchange is so weird.
It's just bizarre.
There's two good lines where it's like, I knew you'd come back, or and I'm
my
here.
dad promised me, or whatever it was.
Yeah, and I was like, oh man, here we go. But then, she's like, get out, and you're right, and like all those people just kind of back off and disappear from the room, I guess, and
it's so strange.
That feels like Christopher Nolan, the cold, distant Mr. Thematic has just taken over there, and he's forgotten that he's trying to inject a bit more heart into this movie or something, because it just doesn't work. And I really wanted it to, because it could have saved a lot of the coincidence and some of the cheesiness of the ending.
Yeah, I agree. So I don't think like having him survive, because it didn't sort of feel logically sound, or at least plausible.
Yeah.
I think if it had a huge payoff, it would have earned that.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
Having this rushed little weird exchange and then
and then she gives him a new like philosophy and outlook. Again, it's like you have to go to Anne Hathaway because she needs you, and he just like, and you get shots of Anne Hathaway burying her, boyfriend or
Yeah.
whatever, and breathing the air. So like that's the planet they're going to go to.
Yeah.
But it just felt very strange.
Yeah, it was an odd way to end. And then I think it ends
That's-
on her monologue, right? Like talking about how
Yeah.
she's setting up the new world for us.
That's right.
And
yeah.
then he goes and gets in his little spacecraft, and
yeah.
you never even see him leave. The cleaner comes, or the
Yeah.
guy comes in the next day to inspect the
Notices
spacecraft,
stuff's
and one's gone.
Gone. Yeah, it ends with Anne Hathaway, right, looking out over the distance or something.
Yeah, I think the camera pulls around. You see her kind of little base that
Yeah.
she's set up, like
That's
a couple
right,
of
yeah.
tents and some
Yeah.
lights and stuff.
Yeah.
Going back to the fact that it was shot on film, but also like the practicality of everything, I loved.
Yeah.
There's shots, especially not so much in the beginning, even that though you can totally tell that was filmed on celluloid. It looks fucking beautiful. But the space stuff in particular, there's certain shots with the helmets and the reflections where
Yeah.
it just looks like a 70s sci-fi film, like
Yeah.
legitimately. And I mean
Yeah.
that is the highest compliment I can give a film like this. Like it,
Yeah, I know what you
and
mean.
it just there's something about it that just feels so real, and it doesn't feel like CGI and like
Not at all.
shiny.
Yeah.
And I even loved how they have like the doors in the space station or the spaceships they have. When they open, they don't make some like shh or like
Yeah.
like weird sci-fi sound. They literally don't really make any noises apart
Yeah.
from like a sort of dull metallic crank where
Yeah.
they're actually opening them. Like it was so refreshing, and
Yeah.
I loved all that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Christopher Nolan has always been so good in his use of CGI and that sort of thing, and practical sets. And
Yeah.
like, because he's so good, I can't tell how much of this, aside from some obvious wide shots maybe, was CG and what was practical. It feels practical, and I
Yeah.
think that's the thing, like you were saying. Like, it feels like they built this giant set for the spaceship. And
Yep.
when they're on the ocean planet, they're filming in a shallow ocean at some point. Like, and same with the ice stuff. Wherever that was filmed, it feels on location, and he never overuses CG at all.
No.
Like, it's just it's so great. And I think that connects to his philosophy of using film, and he's so passionate about that and trying to keep it alive. And I admire that so much. I think I love technology and I love progress. But I'm hesitant that to like just forget about film, and the arguments about quality do not matter to me at all. And from an artistic point of view, like, I just don't understand how people can say, "Oh, but digital's cleaner and clearer," and somehow that makes it better. Like, as an artistic choice, maybe.
Yeah, some films are fine in digital, some films are fine
Exactly.
in 35mm.
Yeah, it's just that we could do a whole podcast on that sort of thing.
Yeah, we should
But
get started.
but you could feel the film in this movie, and the tactile sense of everything, and
Yeah, it's so nice.
it's just another great thing about it.
You really forget how much you've missed that look of film until you see it.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. As soon as it starts,
Yeah.
it's like, that's right. This is what
Yeah.
real film looks
Yeah.
like. Yeah. So, over the course of this discussion, it's like a microcosm of how I've been feeling
Yeah.
about the movie,
Yeah.
because we're going like back and forth between, I love this so much and this was annoying and didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I still can't fall on either side. I mean, I guess I'm more positive overall. Definitely.
Yep.
But I'm just so glad this movie exists.
Yeah.
And like we kind of said for Snowpiercer, like, for someone to have this sort of creative vision from the first frame to the end and just not sort of dilute it for anyone, or to just to take the chance to make something like this is amazing. And I think that's a reason to see it and to get involved in it and talk about it and like delve into everything about this movie, even though it has big problems. It's just it's so cool that it exists.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing it again and kind of picking it apart in a good way and like studying what's happened.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like you said, even though it doesn't work 100% of the time, there's so much good stuff in there.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is just amazing that stuff like this is still being made, and again, it's like Snowpiercer. It's like, this should be celebrated. This is the kind
Absolutely.
of film that we want to see more of, even if it's not perfect. Hopefully,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of Christopher Nolan impersonators going around now. You know,
Yeah.
but it's all usually about the dark mood and
That's
visual
right.
style. But
Yeah.
you know, hopefully, if more of these films come out and they're huge successes, that'll inspire studios to put more money into things that are a little bit different and
Yeah.
a little bit
I
more,
really hope so.
original. And you know, I mean, even it's great to see a big blockbuster Hollywood film that doesn't have a gun in it. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's
Oh,
no
absolutely.
violence. I mean, there's a fist fight, but
Yeah,
know
but
what I
it's
mean?
a thematic fight, you know?
yeah,
It's all
exactly.
about the themes.
It's like that's the sort of shit that it's so rare to see
Yeah.
these days. And,
yeah, absolutely.
like everyone should go out and see this film, because even if
Yeah.
you don't love it, it's
Yeah.
such a fascinating fucking mess of a film. Like,
yeah, and it's such an experience
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Just audio
You-
and visuals. Like, you need to see this in a theater for the first time.
yeah, see it on the biggest screen possible.
Yeah.
because there's visuals in there that you will have never experienced in a film before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So mirroring what you said. Not 100% sure where I sit, but
yeah,
definitely positive on it. And
yeah, absolutely.
everyone should check it out.
Yeah, and still really excited for Christopher Nolan as a filmmaker.
Sure am.
See what he does next. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Pre-Post Film Review. We'd love to hear what you guys thought about Interstellar. There's obviously heaps of discussion to be had about this film, so please send us an email at prepostfilmreview@gmail.com.
We're also on Facebook, so you can leave us a message there or give us a like. That'd be great. We're on Twitter as well, so we'll occasionally be shooting out tweets for new episodes and bits of film news. So you can follow us there at prepostfr. The most important thing though is iTunes. If you guys could subscribe to us
Please.
on iTunes, that would be amazing. That helps us get exposure and included on lists. It also really helps if you leave a review. So if you like the show, just jump on there and give us a little write-up and a star rating. That'd be great. If you don't like using iTunes, we're also on Stitcher, so you can review us there and subscribe to our channel there as well.
It's true. You can also continue sort of the film discussion with us on letterboxd.com. You'll find the link in the show notes, and you can check out what other movies we're seeing and how we're rating them that we don't really talk about on the podcast. So join us next episode as we're going to be talking about the new Hunger Games film, Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1.
Quite a mouthful.
It is.